Max Crosby made some interesting comments to Patrick Mahomes at the end of the game, and it's got people talking. Some fans are upset, asking, why would you say that to a rival player after a loss? We'll dive into that, discuss updates on Pro Bowl voting, and talk about why Brock Bowers is being called the best tight end in the NFL. Lastly, we'll touch on the latest draft order update. Let's jump right into it. First, the Raiders lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. After the game, Maxx Crosby and Patrick Mahomes were caught on a hot mic during their handshake. Crosby said to Mahomes, "Go get another one, brother." Some fans are upset, wondering why Crosby would wish Mahomes luck in winning another Super Bowl, especially when the Chiefs are divisional rivals. Personally, I don't think it's a big deal. We don't know the relationship between Crosby and Mahomes. They could be close friends or just have mutual respect for each other as competitors. While we, as diehard Raider fans, don't want to see the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, Crosby isn't just a fan, he's a player. For him, the perspective is different. Some players say things based on the personal connections they have, and that's normal. Criticizing Crosby for this seems over the top. He's still a loyal Raider on the field, and this one comment doesn't change that. Now moving on to Brock Bowers. This rookie tight end is making waves. He's leading the Pro Bowl voting for tight ends and having an incredible first season. Some people are already calling him the best tight end in the NFL, and honestly, I agree. Brock Bowers has been nothing short of amazing. It's rare for a player to come into the league and make such a big impact right away, but Bowers is proving to be a generational talent. What do you think? Is Brock Bowers the best tight end in the NFL already? Let's talk about it. The term generational player gets thrown around a lot, but it's rarely true. Some players are just good, but Brock Bowers truly fits the label. He's a special talent. His route running, ability to create separation, and skill in catching passes, whether it's high-pointing the ball or using late hands, are incredible. Add in his football IQ, and you've got a player who stands out in every way. Right now, I believe Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the NFL. Sure, George Kittle is up there too, but Bowers feels like he's on another level. Statistically, he's dominating. Just look at his game against the Chiefs, where he racked up 140 yards. Watch the tape, and you'll see why this guy is being called a superstar. The Pro Bowl voting reflects this, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's named a first-team All-Pro as well. Honestly, as long as he stays healthy, I see him being an All-Pro for the next 10 to 15 years. That's how good he is. Speaking of Pro Bowl voting, Bowers isn't the only interesting name. Players like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Carson Steele are also getting recognition. Carson Steele, for example, is listed as a fullback, though I thought he was a running back. And then there's Joel, who's leading Pro Bowl votes for the AFC. That one surprised me a bit. Don't get me wrong, Joel is a solid player, but I don't think he's on the same level as someone like Penei Sewell. It seems like Joel's hype has grown because of some viral social media posts, but the tape doesn't fully back it up. He's good, but he's not at that elite level yet. Still, he's the leader for now, and it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. One player I'm happy to see leading in Pro Bowl votes is Dexter Lawrence. He's one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the NFL. In my opinion, Lawrence is easily a top 2 or top 3 player at his position, yet he doesn't always get the recognition he deserves. On the AFC side, Maxx Crosby is currently ranked 6th, which is a bit surprising. However, Pro Bowl voting often depends on how well a team is performing. Wins matter, and they influence how players are perceived. Now let's shift gears to talk about the Raiders and the NFL Draft. As of now, the Raiders hold the 2nd overall pick, but nothing is set in stone with 5 weeks left in the season. A lot can change. If the Raiders win even one game, they could drop from the 2nd pick to as low as the 8th pick due to their strength of schedule. That's a big fall, and it could mean missing out on drafting a top quarterback. To be clear, I'm not saying the Raiders should tank the season, but the team needs to think carefully about its quarterback situation. Over the past few weeks, Scott Turner's offensive designs have been solid. When Aiden O'Connell has been at quarterback, We've seen passes delivered within the structure of the offense, and the team has shown signs of improvement. If the Raiders can't secure a high draft pick, they might need to consider moving forward with O'Connell next season. Interestingly, Pro Football Focus recently updated their list of the top 250 prospects, including their quarterback rankings. According to PFF, Jalen Milroe is ranked as the top quarterback, followed by Cameron Ward at number 2 and Shedeur Sanders at 3. Many Raider fans are excited about the idea of drafting Sanders, and it's easy to see why. However, the debate over which quarterback to target and how each one might fit into the Raiders' system is massive. It'll be fascinating to see how things play out in the final weeks of the season. What's your take? Should the Raiders stick with O'Connell or aim for one of these top prospects? This year's quarterback class doesn't compare to the talent we've seen in the past couple of drafts. It's not like last year, and it's definitely not on the same level as the year before when Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud came out. With those two, you could watch their tape and confidently say they'd become successful NFL quarterbacks. Bryce Young's play was smooth and reliable, and C.J. Stroud had the tools to dominate. This year, there's no clear standout. Sure, a lot of people like Cameron Ward, and he might end up being the number 1 pick for some teams. He's shown that he can play well within structure and has some of the skills needed for the NFL. But even with Ward, people aren't completely sold. Many scouts and analysts believe this class could struggle to live up to the hype, similar to the 2022 class when Kenny Pickett was the only first-round quarterback, and even he hasn't panned out the way many hoped. On top of that, some top college quarterbacks may not even enter this year's draft. Players like Jalen Milroe, Drew Aller, and Quinn Ewers could decide to stay in school for another year to develop further. For example, Miller Moss recently announced he's transferring from USC and will be staying in college as a graduate student instead of entering the draft. These decisions could make this year's quarterback class even thinner. The Raiders now face a big question. Do they take a risk on one of these quarterbacks, or do they stick with Aiden O'Connell and hope for a better class next year? Some fans might say wait for Arch Manning, but there's no guarantee he'll declare for the draft after 3 years, or even live up to the hype. The truth is, the Raiders need to figure out their quarterback situation, and sooner rather than later. Drafting a quarterback might make sense, but the team has to be smart about it. Would it be worth taking Shedeur Sanders with the 3rd overall pick if he's graded as a 3rd-round prospect, or Cameron Ward if he's seen as a 4th-round talent? It's a risky move to reach for a quarterback, especially when other elite players like Ashton Genie, Travis Hunter, or Will Johnson could be available. Guys who are projected to have a huge impact in the NFL. The Raiders need to weigh their options carefully. Should they roll the dice on this year's quarterback class or wait for better talent down the road? What would you do? Should the Raiders prioritize drafting a top prospect over taking a gamble on a quarterback they aren't fully confident in? The next few weeks will reveal a lot, not just about Aiden O'Connell, but also about the other players on the roster. Take Clelin Ferrell, for instance. He had a standout game recently, and some fans are already saying, "Pay that man." But I'd hesitate. Watching his tape shows flashes of brilliance in some games, but inconsistency in others. Sometimes he seems to lack a clear pass rush plan and gets stuck battling offensive tackles without making much progress. The same goes for O'Connell. While he's shown promise, I wouldn't rush into committing to him just yet. The Raiders should use the rest of this season to evaluate how he performs under pressure. With 5 games left, there's plenty of time to determine if he's truly the answer at quarterback. On the college side, the upcoming bowl games and college football playoffs will also give us a better look at some of the top quarterback prospects. If Alabama makes the playoffs, we might see more from Jalen Milroe. Other quarterbacks like Cameron Ward or Shedeur Sanders might not be featured in major games, but prospects such as Drew Aller could get the spotlight. The draft is never guaranteed, and we don't know where the Raiders will pick. In my opinion, The ideal scenario for the Raiders would be for O'Connell and offensive coordinator Scott Turner to step up and prove themselves over the next 5 games. If they can win 3 of those games and show real progress, the team could head into next season with a solid plan. Turner as the offensive play caller and O'Connell as the starting quarterback. That stability would be a huge win. On the flip side, if things don't go well, it might not be the worst-case scenario. The Raiders would know where they stand and could reset their approach, focusing on finding the right quarterback for the future. What do you think about the Raiders' current situation? And what's your take on the Maxx Crosby comments? Do they matter? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.